Hello students, today we are going to do a lesson on variables and expressions. This is lesson 1 of the unit. In the yellow box, it tells us that 3/4 of this policeman's time is spent patrolling, and 1/4 of his time is spent at the station. So in example 1, they ask us, this week he worked 40 hours. How much time did he spend patrolling? So what we are going to do is we are going to take 3/4 of the 40 hours and figure out how much time he spent patrolling. So 3/4 of 40 hours, that simply means 3/4 times the 40 hours, and 3/4 times 40 is 30 hours, and we want to remember to label our answer, 30 hours. It also wants to know how much time he spent at the station. Well, we know that 1/4 of his time is spent at the station. If he worked 40 hours, we're going to do 1/4 of 40 hours. Again, that magical word of means 1/4 times 40, and 1/4 times 40 is 10 hours. So the policeman spent 10 hours at the station. So one thing to remember is that the magical word of means to multiply. And if you need to, pause it to take notes. We're going to move on to example 2. Example 2, again 3/4 of the policeman's time is spent patrolling, 1/4 of his time is spent at the station. So now he's working 60 hours, and we want to know how much time he spent patrolling and how much time he was at the station. So we are going to look at 3/4 of 60, so 3/4 times 60 gives us 45 hours patrolling. And again, he's at the station 1/4 of the time, so 1/4 of 60, or 1/4 times 60, tells us that he spends 15 hours at the station in that week. So if you notice the little notes that are over here highlighted in yellow, you might want to pause the video and copy this down. The hours worked per week obviously has changed between example 1 and example 2, but the fraction part stayed the same. So since the hours worked per week can vary, we could use a variable to represent that number. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, what is a variable? A variable is a symbol used to represent a number. So please take a minute and make sure you copy that definition down. The variable is usually a letter. So we usually use a letter for that symbol. So if we look back at our policeman example, the time that the policeman spent patrolling could be expressed as 3/4 times H, where H represents the number of hours worked in the week. We are going to use variables when we look at algebraic expressions. And an algebraic expression is a number, a variable, or a combination of numbers, variables, and operators. And those operators are our addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So make sure you have that definition in your notes. Some examples of algebraic expressions are listed below. X plus 4, 1/2 times r, k divided by 8, y minus 10, 3w minus 7, x squared plus 1 divided by y minus 4. Those are all examples of algebraic expressions. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, why do we use letters? Why do we use letters for those variables? The reason that we use letters and not these symbols like a star or a tree or a building or a piece of cheese, is because letters are symbols that everyone knows and everyone can draw. So everyone knows how to make an H. Everyone knows how to make a T. It might be kind of difficult for everyone to draw a car that looks like that and know what you are talking about. So that's why we use letters. Now we're going to look at a few more examples looking at some algebraic expressions. The directions for examples 3 through 6 tell us to evaluate each expression for n is equal to 12. And you might be sitting at home thinking to yourself, I don't know what that is asking me to do. I don't know what it means to evaluate. So what does evaluate mean? Evaluate means to substitute values in for variables and then simplify. So all we're going to do when they say to evaluate for n equals 12, we're going to substitute 12 in every time we see an n. So that's what it means. And then to simplify, we're simply going to write it in the simplest form. So let's go back to our examples. N plus 15 in example 3. So we're evaluating. Everywhere we see an n, we're going to replace it with a 12. 12 plus 15. We all know that 12 plus 15 is equal to 27. How about n plus n? Well, we know n is equal to 12 plus the same n is also 12. 12 plus 12 gives us 24. 5/6 times n. This goes back to our police officer example. 5/6 times our variable n, which is 12. 5/6 times 12 is equal to 10. In example 6, 5n minus 40, we are going to do 5 All right, please excuse the fire drill. Continuing with example 6, 5n minus 40. So we have 5 times n is equal to 12. We can use parentheses to represent multiplication. Minus 40. We know that 5 times 12 is 60. And 60 minus 40 is equal to 20. So our simplified answer for number 6 is 20. Example 7, now we have more than one variable. We have a, b, and c in example 7, and they tell us to evaluate if a is equal to 15, b is equal to 6, and c is equal to -3. And you want to pay special attention to this little note that we have over here highlighted in yellow. Two variables next to each other with no symbol between them simply means that we should multiply those variables together. So a is equal to 15 times b is equal to 6 divided by 2 times c, and c is equal to -3, and I'm going to put that -3 in parentheses so I don't get confused and think it is 2 minus 3. Now I need to simplify using my order of operations. 15 times 6 is 90. 2 times -3 is -6, and 90 divided by -6 is equal to -15. So that is our simplified answer. If we move on, I want you to take a minute, copy down example 8, a times b times c, all divided by 25. I want you to try this one on your own, so please pause the video and try it on your own. When you are finished, please unpause it and then check your answer with mine. So we have 15 times 6 times -3, all divided by 25. When we simplify that numerator, we get -270 divided by 25, and that fraction simplifies to -54 over 5. So hopefully your answer matches my answer. And the last one for the lesson, example 9, evaluate if c is equal to -3. So we're going to replace c with -3. 2/3 times -3 plus 5. 2/3 times -3 is -2 plus 5. -2 plus 5 is equal to 3. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day.